So I already made a video explaining every single question on here, okay? And on this, I want to make a shorter video just explaining one question from each section. So let's first start out by eliminating number 3. Number 3, we decided to take off the test, make it a little shorter for us. And there's a couple more that we're going to end up skipping, but let's just do a couple from each section. Numbers 1 and 2, it says write an equation in point-slope form. So the very first thing you need to know is what point-slope form is. And point-slope form, everybody should know, is y minus y1 equals m, parenthesis, x minus x1. Point slope, right? So if you have a point and you have a slope, all you have to do is plug it right into there. And on 2 of the questions of the test, you're going to be doing that. And the way to plug it in would be to rewrite your equation, your point-slope form equation, but without the y1, without the m, without the x. Leave blank spots. So y minus y1, leave it blank, equals m, leave it blank, parenthesis, x minus x1, leave it blank. And of course, your x1 and your y1 come from there, and your m, they give it to you, it's negative 4/5. So the y value happens to be 3, the x value happens to be negative 7, and you put that negative 7 inside the parentheses with the x. And the m value is negative 4/5. And we're done. All you have to do is change the minus to plus. And that is your point-slope form equation. They're asking for point-slope form. That is point-slope form. We are done. Easy? Yeah. So let's jump to the next section instead of doing number 2, because you do number 2 exactly the way you do number 1. If you want to see number 2, watch the other video that I did. On numbers 4, 5, and 6, they want you to write each equation in standard form. Now, we all need to know that standard form is capital AX plus capital BY equals capital C, where A, B, and C are numbers, right? And they're a specific type of number. They're integers. That means no fractions, no decimals. And obviously, standard form has no parentheses that we see on all these questions 4, 5, and 6. But on standard form, we definitely don't want fractions. We don't want decimals. So if you don't want fractions, what could you do? Multiply everything by the denominator. Okay, so when I say everything, I'm saying the y times the denominator 2, the 3 times the denominator 2, the fraction times the denominator 2, but do not multiply the inside of the parentheses by the denominator 2. Why? Because distributive property says that you have to multiply from the outside in. So if whatever you do to this outside term, it's like if you did it to the inside term. So don't mess with the inside because you already multiplied the outside term by 2. Anyways, our new equation without fractions will be 2y minus 6 equals, the 2's cancel, you're going to have 5 parenthesis x plus 4. Now they do want standard form. Standard form, you don't want fractions, you don't want decimals, and of course, standard form does not have parentheses that we have here. So let's get rid of those parentheses by distributing 5 times x, that's 5x. 5 times 4, that is 20. Bring down everything. We have a 2y, a minus 6, an equal sign, and we almost have it in standard form. Some of us are able to do 2 steps in one without getting confused. I'm just going to do 1 step at a time, all right? I know that I want my numbers to the right and my x and y's on the left. So I want to get rid of that minus 6 by doing the opposite, plus 6. I want to move it to the right. The minus 6 plus 6 cancels out. I have a new equation that reads 2y equals 5x plus 26. And the only other thing I need to do is move the x to the left. So I don't want the 5x on the right side. I want to move it to the left side. So I'm going to subtract 5x, and I can't subtract 2y take away 5x, so I'm going to rewrite it. So I have negative 5x plus 2y equals 26. Now here's a very important detail. On the multiple choice, if you bubble in this answer, it's going to be wrong. Why is that? Because they want the a value to be positive. So let's change all the signs by multiplying everything by negative 1 or dividing everything by negative 1. But our final answer is going to be a positive 5x, a negative 2y equals a negative 26. That's your final standard form answer that you will see on the multiple choice. So number 4 was the hardest one on this section, because if you look at 5 and 6, you don't even have fractions to deal with. All you do is distribute and then move the x's and y's to the left side. So if you want to see numbers 5 and 6, watch my other video. Right here, 17 through 13, this whole section is the biggest section of the test. It says, write an equation of the line in slope-intercept form that passes through each pair of points. So I'll do one of these guys, 7 or 8. I'll do 7. 7's a little bit more challenging than 8. So how do we start writing an equation? M equals? Y2. There we go. Y2 minus Y1, X2 minus X1. And when you use this slope formula, do the division and subtractions first. And of course, label your X, your Y, your X, your Y. This is your first point, put a 1 next to it. This is your second, put a 2 next to them. So Y2 is 0, Y1 is negative 3, X2 is 6, X1 is negative 6. The minus minus changes to plus plus. Our slope is 0 plus 3 is 3, and 6 plus 6 is 12. Always reduce if possible, or divide if possible. And right here we could reduce by 3, which means our slope is 1 over 4. If you reduce by 3, it gives you a 1. If you divide by 3, it gives you a 4. So the slope is 1 over 4. Now, it says write an equation in what form? Slope-intercept. That's y equals mx plus b. Let me write that down. Y equals mx plus b. Now, if you know your m, which you do know is 1/4, and you know your b, we don't know that yet, but if you know those two things, you will be able to write your equation in slope-intercept form. And let me tell you this, guys. The multiple choice test, once you find your slope 1/4, some of the questions, you're just going to be able to look at it, and the 4 possibilities, they all have different slopes, and only one equation has a slope 1/4. So if you're smart and you're looking at the answers, you'll be able to identify the correct answer without doing anything else. You just know, hey, the slope is 1/4, I'm done, right? Because there's only one equation that has a slope 1/4. But anyways, let's say that we do want to find the b value. You could use y equals mx plus b and plug in an x right there, a y right there, and the b value and the m value of 1/4 right there, and solve for b. Or you could go with point slope form. It is totally up to you. So what do you guys say? Point slope form, or just use y equals mx plus b? Okay, so if you don't like point slope form, we could just stick with y equals mx plus b. I am going to use the first point. I'm going to plug in my y value of what? Negative 3. Then it says equals, what's my m value going to be? 1/4. We found that using the slope formula, times x. What's my x value on that? It's negative 6 up there, right? So let me put a negative 6, and then plus b. Plus b. So we need to solve for b, and if you're thinking, oh, I don't know how to multiply fractions with a number, it's really easy. Just put that number over 1, and then multiply the numerator with the numerator and the denominator with the denominator. So take the 1, multiply by negative 6, the 4, multiply it by 1, and you'll get your new fraction. So let me rewrite my new equation. I have a negative 3 on the left side equals negative 6 over 4 plus b. Now we can make that fraction look a little nicer by reducing it, and we'll get negative 3 over 2 plus b equals negative 3. And if you're still confused and you don't want to add 3/2 to both sides, you could get rid of the fraction by doing what? Multiplying everything times 2. It'll temporarily get rid of it. Times 2 here, times 2 there, times 2 there. We're going to end up with negative 6 equals negative 3 plus 2b. So let's continue getting b by itself. What do I get rid of first?
Plus 3.
The negative 3 by going plus 3. That's right, plus 3. So let me write my new equation up here. I'm running out of space. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. I have it equal to 2b. So how do I get rid of that 2 in front of the b? Divide by 2, and I will have b equals negative 3/2. So I found my m from above using the slope formula, and I found my b value. My b value is negative 3/2. So my slope-intercept form equation will be y equals m, which is 1/4, x plus b, which happens to be a negative 3/2. And that's your slope-intercept form equation. Yay? Now you didn't have to plug it all into y equals mx plus b. If you wanted to, you could have taken that point and the slope that you just found and plugged it into point slope form and then changed it to slope-intercept. It is totally up to you guys. Now number 7 is even easier because 7, again, the two things that you need to find the slope-intercept form equation is a m and a b. Now, you could find the m by using the slope formula. You'll get the m. And the b value, if you notice 0, 3, and you think about that coordinate, 0 on the x, 3 on the y, that coordinate itself is the b value. So indirectly, they're telling you that the b value is 3. And the slope you could find with the slope formula. And once you have that m and you have that b, you'll be able to write the slope-intercept form equation. So again, if you want to see all that else, number 8 worked out, watch the other video. Numbers 9 and 10 are very straightforward and easy because they give you a slope already. On the other ones, you had to find the slope. On this one, they give you the slope. Which one do you guys want to do, 9 or 10? 10 with the fraction? Sure, why not? So you could say, I want to write my equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. But in order to do that, you need the m and you need the b. Now they give you the m, but you need to find the b. And how could we do that? By taking the x value, the y value, and the m value and plug it all into y equals mx plus b and solving for b. Or, if you really wanted to, you could take your point and your slope and plug it all into your point slope form equation, y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. So it's totally up to you which way you want to go. So you want to try the point slope form since we just did one with slope-intercept?
No, slope-intercept.
You want to stick with slope-intercept always. Okay, if you want to stick with slope-intercept, go for it. But just for the sake of this video, I want to show the other way of point slope. So point slope, you would write it y minus blank spot equals blank spot parentheses x minus blank spot. And you're going to plug in your x and your y. Your y value is 3. Your m value is 1/2. They gave that to you. And your x value is 8. So this equation right here is in point slope form. And you could manipulate that equation to make it look like y equals mx plus b. In other words, you don't want these parentheses. So distribute 1/2. 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times negative 8. Put it over 1. And what do we end up with when I multiply 1 times 8 and 2 times 1? Negative what? Negative 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 8 halves. We do have the equal sign, the y minus 3 on this side. What is 8 divided by 2 over here, guys? 4. So I really have y minus 3 equals 1/2 x minus 4. What's my final step to get into slope-intercept form? Get y by itself, so you're going to go plus 3 here, plus 3 over here. Your slope-intercept form equation is y equals 1/2 x minus 1. So that's using point slope. I might as well explain this using slope-intercept, right? If you don't like point slope, you could take your x, plug it in there, your y, plug it in there, your m, plug it in there, and solve for the missing value b. So instead of y, I would write 3 equals, instead of m, you're going to write 1/2 times x, and x happens to be 8 plus b. What was that? So yeah, you could put the multiplication dot, or you could put parentheses, or you could do both the dot and the parenthesis. When you work this out, put the 8 over 1, multiply top with the bottom, you're going to get again 8 over 2, and 8 divided by 2 is 4, with the equal sign, with the 3, with the plus b. Subtract 4, negative 1 equals b. Now that you know your m that was given to you and your b, which is negative 1, now you could write it in slope-intercept form and you would get this same exact equation, y equals 1/2 x minus 1. I explained it both ways. You pick the way you feel that you know best or you feel more comfortable with. Down here, these are really easy equations. I'm only going to do one of them. they want you to write it in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So all you have to do is identify the m and identify the b, and then you could write it in y equals mx plus b form. So they give you this point and that point. You don't have to use those two, but if you did, you go down 2 over 2. So because you're going down 2, that's a negative 2 up there. So negative 2 is the rise, and the run is positive 2. You always run positive. You always run to the right. So negative 2 over 2, that is negative 1. So the m value is negative 1, and the b value is also negative 1. So the y equals mx plus b form equation will be y equals negative 1x plus b, which is minus 1. Now, I'll tell you this, on the multiple choice answers, I don't even think they're going to write the negative 1x. They're just going to write negative x. So y equals negative x minus 1 is your slope-intercept form equation. So when they give you the graph, just find the m by counting rise over run, find the b by where it crosses the y-axis, and you're ready to go. Let's move on to the backside. So on the backside, we are going to skip 14 and 15. Don't do those. We figured that those were too time consuming and too easy because you just plug in a x and a y and see if it works or it doesn't. Number 16 and 17, you want to change the following point slope form equations to slope intercept. Let's do number 16. You guys could try number 17 on your own. 16, what do I do to start changing it to slope intercept? What do I do to start changing it to slope intercept? First of all, what is slope intercept? Y equals mx plus b. So what do I start doing? If you wanted to get rid of the fraction, you multiply everything by 2, and you could do that. Okay, you could do that. Or you could distribute the fraction and then get rid of fractions. It's up to you. Okay, I want to get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by 2. Not the inside of the parenthesis by 2. But I do have 2y minus 6 equals, that cancels 5 parenthesis x plus 6. But see, now that you don't have a fraction, now it's easy to distribute the 5. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 6 is 30. We have an equal sign here. We have 2y minus 6. Now, they want this in slope-intercept form, so I need to get y by itself. So I need to get rid of two things, the minus 6. I want to get rid of the minus 6 by going plus 6 and plus 6. So my new equation will be 2y equals 5x plus 36. And my final step would be to divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. So my slope-intercept form equation is y equals 5 over 2x plus 18. Yay? And for the last 3, all you have to do is write them in slope-intercept form. And before graphing your line, you have to decide if it's solid or dotted. And then after that, you have to shade either above your line or below your line. So I want to do one of these. I want to do number 19. The very first thing to do is to get it so where you could graph it. So you want it in y equals mx plus b form. So what do I do first? If I want to get this in y equals mx plus b. Thank you. Subtract 3x. Subtract 3x. Let's rewrite it. I have a 3y is greater than or equal to. You can't do 9 take away 3x, so you're going to rewrite it negative 3x with the positive 9. I almost have y by itself. What do I do next? Divide by 3. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. You're going to have y. Do I flip the inequality or keep it? Keep it. I didn't divide by negative. I do have a negative 1 in front of x. And then plus 3. So this inequality that's now in slope-intercept form, I know it crosses the y-axis where? Where does it cross the y-axis? 3. So you put a dot at 3. Now from that point, are you going to go up or are you going to go down? Down. That's because the slope is negative. If it were a positive slope, you would go up, right? But it's negative 1. So you're going to go down 1, and you always run 1. So think of it as a fraction, negative 1 over 1. So you're going to go down 1 over 1, put a dot right there. And down 1 over 1, put a dot there, and so on and so on. Now, is this a solid line or a dotted line? Solid. Solid because it has a solid line underneath it. So let's do a solid line. Now, the shading is as easy as this, guys. Since y is by itself, this is your line, right? This is where it crosses, this is where it drops and goes over. So your line is right here. When y is by itself, it says y is what? Greater than the line or less than the line? What does it say? Greater than. So we're going to go greater than the line. Greater than would be above. So you would simply shade in the top part. If it would have been a less than, then we would have shaded in below. A greater than's above, a less than's below. If you were to have tested the point 0, 0, 0 for x, 0 for y, it would say 0 is greater than 3, and that's false. That's why you're not shading in down here. You're shading in the other side because 0, 0 did not work. Ladies and gentlemen, I've explained one question of each type. You should be ready to go. If you need help on the rest, watch the longer version of this video. This video is pretty long. I'm done.